Chapter 35. Dad drove me home after soccer tryouts. He had shown up when they ended like he'd never had any doubt I would try out. What a know-it-all. He beamed and asked a million questions as I described every detail of the tryouts to him in the car. When we got to Stagecoach Pass, he opened the center console and pulled out an envelope. "I found this in a drawer at the steakhouse," he said. He turned the envelope over, and I saw that one word was written on it: desk. "They don't fit the desk in the office." He opened the flap in my book bag and slipped the envelope inside. "Let me know what you find in there, Sheebs." I ran as fast as I could to the storage shed before I lost that last bit of light creeping in through the filmy windows. I slipped a foot out of my flat and opened my book bag. I removed the envelope and slid my toes inside. I pulled out a ring with two small keys hanging off it. I felt like I was playing one of those impossible carnival games as I attempted to slip one of the keys, held between my toes, into the hole in the desk. It finally fit, and I pushed it all the way in with the bottom of my foot. It took all my strength to turn it, and it hurt the skin on my toes, but the key turned in the lock. I pulled the bottom drawer out and looked inside. Another stack of papers. I pulled those out, barely able to read any of them in the failing light. But underneath the stack, laying at the bottom of the drawer, was a framed picture. I carefully lifted it out with my feet and laid it on the floor in front of me. It was of two red-haired women. They stood in front of the steakhouse and they had their arms around each other. The older one I clearly recognized, but the other I didn't. But I could see my face in hers. She wore the necklace, and she was pregnant. I slipped the picture into my book bag and carried it home. Mom was already putting dinner on the table when she turned and gave me a huge smile. "So, how did it go?" For a moment I didn't know what she was talking about. "Oh, soccer? Of course soccer," she laughed. Then her face fell. "Did it not go well?" "No, it went great." "What's wrong?" she asked. "I opened the desk," I told her. She stared at me silently. "I found a picture in there. It's in my bag." Mom immediately lifted my bag off me and carried it to the table. She opened it and pulled the picture out. She studied it intensely. "I know where it goes," I told her. We walked to the museum together and Mom pressed the picture against the empty space in the wall, the Kavanaughs, 2004. The year I was born. Mom let out a big sigh. "After you showed Dad and me the picture of the girl, we worried maybe it was something like this, but we weren't sure. And we didn't know who would have. We even tried contacting the adoption agency we used, but your old birth certificate and any identifying records were sealed. They couldn't tell us anything. We hadn't decided what else to do about it yet." "I don't know what to do about it either," I said. "Do you think she knows?" Mom turned to me and ran a hand down my hair. How could she not? She put her hands on my shoulders and squeezed. "Do you want to go talk to her?" I looked at the older lady in the picture. I needed to know. And my parents needed to know. I took a deep breath. "Okay," I whispered. "Do you want me to go with you?" I looked up at her. "I think maybe I should go alone." Mom nodded. "I understand." I made my way to the steakhouse, the photo in my bag. I watched as Josephine took an order from a table and then followed her back into the kitchen. She noticed me as she placed a couple of burgers on her tray. "What you doing back here, Avon?" "I need to talk to you." "It's awful busy." She pushed through the swinging doors back to the dining room. I followed her to the table. I waited while she placed the burgers in front of her customers. "I need to talk to you," I told her again as I followed her back to the kitchen. I could have easily walked away, but I wouldn't, or my nerves would scare me off. She stopped and folded her arms. "Now what could be so important that you would interrupt dinner like this?" I stared at her, my heart racing. "I won't leave until you talk to me." She made a big, frustrated sigh and led me to the restaurant's little office. Better make it quick, she said. I've got tables out there waiting. I placed my bag on the desk, opened the flap, and pulled out the framed picture with my foot. It was heavy. My toes trembled, and it started to slip. Josephine reached out and grabbed it before it could drop. She slowly turned the picture over in her shaking hands. I know you know her, I said. Please tell me the truth. Yes. Her eyes filled with tears as she stared down at the photograph. I do. This was taken the year I was born, and I found another picture when she was about my age. She looked just like me. She's my mother, isn't she? Josephine nodded. And you're both Kavanaughs, I said. She nodded again. Yes. She whispered, she was my daughter. That means you're my grandmother? She looked up at me from the picture. I am. Is that why I'm here now? Are you the one who brought us here? You're here because I wanted to see you, to meet you. I shook my head. What for? Were you ever going to tell me? No. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. I'm so confused. So where is she Anyway, is she somewhere around here? She's gone, Josephine said. She died a few weeks after you were born. Oh, I breathed. I had always assumed my parents had given me up because of my disability. I had never considered that my mother had died. I told her it was too soon to do a show, but she wouldn't listen to me. No one ever told her she couldn't do something. She wiped at her eyes. No, sir, she added in a whisper. We think she had a dizzy spell because it was so unlike her to fall off of a horse. I bit my lip. I'm sorry. Josephine shook her head and waved a hand in the air. What about my father? I asked. Josephine shrugged. Don't know. Avon never told me who it was. You see, she always wanted a baby and never did find anyone she wanted to marry. She was getting older, and I guess she decided to take things in her own hands. She said I did it all on my own, and she could too. She was always like that. Take charge, do everything on her own. No one tell her otherwise. She's the one who named you Avon. Josephine laughed. She said men do it all the time. Why shouldn't her daughter be Avon too? She was a firecracker. When she died, I didn't know what to do. I was getting on in years already, and I had this park to look after. I didn't think I could provide the attention and care a baby like you needed. So I thought it would be best to let a nice family adopt you. So you just let me go? I said. Yes. Into a foster care system for 2 years? Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't think that would happen. All I thought was a nice, loving family would want to adopt a baby like you. A baby like me, I repeated. She shook her head. Oh, I'm saying everything wrong. I sighed. It doesn't matter now. You were right. A nice, loving family did adopt me, and that's all that matters. So how'd you find us anyway? Well, I could never stop thinking about you, wondering how you were doing. She looked down at her desk, her cheeks turning pink. So I hired someone to find you. She looked up at me like she was checking my reaction, and then looked away again. He's been giving me regular reports about what's going on with you. So you've been stalking us? I cried. No, not stalking, just checking to make sure you were okay. That's how I found out your daddy had been out of work for a while, and y'all was about to lose your house. We were? I asked, surprised at the information. Well, of course they didn't tell you. They're good parents. Yes, I said, they are. So I got this plan forming in my head to ask your dad to apply for this job. I hadn't been managing the park for years. I just couldn't do it after... She looked down at the picture. Anyway, I prefer to be in the restaurant just working, keeping an eye on things, sort of secret-like. My old park manager didn't have anything under his hat but hair, so I was relieved to see your dad had worked as a restaurant manager. I thought it was worth a shot. I didn't know if he'd apply, but I'm glad he did. How come he doesn't know you're the owner? Oh, well, I go by Joe Kavanaugh for all my business dealings, but mostly here I'm Josephine Oakley. Gives me an air of mystery, don't you think? I stared at her, not exactly knowing what to think. If they all knew who I was, they'd be bothering me about every little thing like they used to. I just couldn't handle that anymore. Only my accountant Gary knows the truth. I prefer it that way. She ran a hand through her dyed red hair. And Henry, but his mind's going. No one else around here worked back when Avon was here, and I thought I did a good job of making sure no one would ever know who I was. She smiled at me. I should have known you'd figure it out, smart as you are, just like her. I took a deep breath. So, what now? Do you expect me to call you Grandma or something? Oh, heavens, no. I never even planned on telling you who I was. I'm leaving Stagecoach Pass. It's time for me to retire. Over 80 years old and still working like a dog. Stick a fork in me. I'm done. Where will you go? The Golden Sunset Retirement Community, about 5 miles from here. They have a swimming pool and mediocre cafeteria food. I guess it'll do. She stared at me. I don't expect you want me to be in your life. I'm just glad to know that you're all doing okay now. What are you going to do with Stagecoach Pass? I asked, worried that my parents would be left without jobs again. Well, it's yours. I stood up straight. What do you mean? I mean, you own it. Right now it's under your parents' control, but when you turn 18, it's all yours to do with as you please. Are you serious? She nodded. You're my only family. It's all I can do for you. This land is worth a lot of money. I stuck my chin out. Maybe I should just sell it and leave. You can do that if that's what you want. I was quiet for a moment. No, I don't think I will. I kind of like it here. Avon liked it here too. You know, she used to play the guitar and sing. She used to do shows for people. I play the guitar too. She smiled. I'm not surprised. So, Avon, she was a performer? Oh, yeah. She didn't just sing with her guitar. She rode horses in the rodeos. She loved being the center of attention. Tell me something else about her. Josephine grinned. She loved tarantulas.